Good evening. Thanks for joining me. Tonight's message I've entitled Faith, the Active Influencer. Fear is powerful. Some are gripped by fear. Some are enslaved by it. The Pharaoh in the book of Exodus, he is someone who is living and abiding in fear. He fears that an uprising may occur. He fears that a revolt may come about from the Israelites. He is insecure and he fears being out of control and without power. And because the Pharaoh is so gripped with fear, he also uses fear as a tactic. He uses fear to manipulate and to try and control the people. And in order to ensure some stability, Pharaoh asserts control. He tightens his grip. It's amazing what people may resort to when their own life seems to be spiraling out of control. The ones whose own life is out of control, oftentimes they seek to control the lives of others. It's ironic. The Pharaoh's actions were fear-based. Because of the insecurity in his own life, he felt the need and desire to direct the lives of others. Because of the conflict that he felt inside, he manifested conflict on the outside. The Pharaoh wanted to be seen as someone who was in control, someone who had all the answers, someone in charge, someone who was keenly aware of what it takes to rule. He ruled out of fear with an iron fist. He sought to demonstrate his power by creating an enemy within. Because of his inner fear, he had the need and thirst for control. He made the foreigners in the land the enemy of the people. These foreigners, the Israelites, were the ones who produced anxiety for the Pharaoh. That and the possibility of war. The Pharaoh was living in a constant state of fear, worry, and anxiety. But he couldn't allow his people to see that. He needed to come off as someone who was in control, someone who had it all together. And because of his own fear inside, he tried to control his outsides, the external. And so he decided to oppress and enslave the Israelites. His idea was to try and make weak that which he was fearful of. To try and make weak that which he was fearful of. And so he develops a new power structure. He installs slave masters. He puts in place slave masters over the Israelites. This new power structure was based out of fear with the need and desire to control. See, Pharaoh knew that power lies with the people, the majority, the people. That power resides with the people. And these people, the Israelites, were growing in size. They were increasing in the land. They were becoming more and more numerous. And this is what made Pharaoh afraid. And so he wondered what he could do to suppress what he deemed as the enemy. How does one suppress the so-called enemy? The Pharaoh decides to exert more and more control. And so he puts in place this new power structure. He installs slave masters over the Israelites. Pharaoh's eyes would be on this new power structure. Pharaoh's eye would be on the new power structure. It would be on these slave masters, those who were put in charge of oppressing the Israelites and the work that they were to carry out. The Pharaoh's eye would be on the results, how they would respond to this new power structure that he put in place. Would the Israelites rebel? Would the Israelites act out? Would they revolt? Would they give the Pharaoh sufficient reason and excuse to attack them and eliminate this made-up threat? The Israelites did not revolt. They did not act out. They did not rebel, but they did the work. They were enslaved and did this work, this forced labor. They built the cities and they continued to grow despite the mistreatment and oppression brought on by the Pharaoh. The Bible tells us that the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. We see Pharaoh's watchful eye on the new power structure, this slavery system, a system of oppression, a program ruled by the state, where their workers are forced to work for the state, known as slave labor. And the Israelites did it. They did not revolt. There was no uprising. If forced labor could not break the Israelites, the Pharaoh would have to consider another assault, another attack on them. The Pharaoh would plan his own attack, a method to instill fear. The Pharaoh would give orders to kill all the Hebrew boys. The Pharaoh's watchful eye would not only be on the slave masters, this new system that he put in place, but also on the entirety of Egypt. We read in Exodus chapter 1, verse 22, Pharaoh gave this order to all his people. Every Hebrew that is born, you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. You see, the Pharaoh wants all the Egyptians to carry out this mass murder. He wants all of the Egyptians to be his eye, keeping a careful watch on the Israelites. If a Hebrew boy is born, throw them into the Nile. Be done with them. Be rid of them. Destroy them. Keep the Israelites in perpetual fear. That was the Pharaoh's plan. That was his method. To keep the people in fear, in perpetual fear. How would the Israelites respond? What would they do? We are told of one particular couple and how they responded. Exodus chapter 2, verse 1. Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. Can you imagine being in this situation? Can you imagine the feelings that one might have felt? Maybe even some of the fear that they might have felt. Perhaps the fear of hiding your child each day for months on end. Afraid of being caught, being found out. Afraid that your child could be snatched up at any minute. Afraid of the sounds and around you and the knocks on the door. How would the mother care for her child? How would she feed him? How would she nurse him? How would she rock him to sleep? How would she soothe his cries? Each day, living in a perpetual fear that is created by the state, by the Pharaoh. The fears that they could have had when they found out that they had a son. What would his future be? What would his future look like? The Bible tells us that when his mother saw him for the first time, when she saw him, she saw something different. She saw that he was a fine child. That word translated as fine, the Hebrew word is the word tob, which means beautiful. She saw that he was a beautiful child, pleasant, agreeable, good, a beautiful baby. With her own eyes, she sees what is good. She sees he is good. It's often said that beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Aesthetics is a technical term, a fancy word, which means an appreciation of beauty. It comes from a Greek word. Asterios is the Greek word we find used in the New Testament in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23, that says, by faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after his birth because they saw that he was a beautiful child and they were unafraid of the king's edict. So here in the New Testament, we are giving a bit more insight. The Bible gives us insight. It tells us that faith met their fear. That faith won the battle against fear. That faith was victorious. What was the active influencer to prompt Moses' parents to hide the child Moses? Faith. Faith was the active influencer. By faith, Moses' parents hid him. Faith prompted by beauty eliminates fear. Faith prompted by beauty eliminates fear. By faith, Moses' parents hid him. You see, faith produces. Faith produces an action. By faith, they hid him for 3 months after his birth. And they saw beauty. Moses was beautiful. He was lovely. And so you see, faith produces the action of hiding. Faith produces the action, and the action is supported. It's supported by beauty, goodness, and courage. It says that they were unafraid of the king's edict. Why did they hide their child? Faith. Faith was the active influencer in their life. Not the Pharaoh, not his edicts, not his orders. Faith was the active influencer in their life. Dear friend, are you living out of fear? Are you living in a state of perpetual fear? Are you living out of fear or faith? Instead of being gripped in fear like the Pharaoh, which resorted into disastrous effects and actions from him. Instead of being gripped in fear like the Pharaoh, believers should live in the state of faith that conquers and eliminates fear. You see, faith steps up. Faith takes action. And faith has its reasons. Just like his parents, it was supported by beauty, goodness, and courage. In the face of danger, faith wins. In the face of oppression, faith wins. In the face of tyranny, faith wins. Dear friend, whatever you are facing today, know that faith produces. It prompts us to be bold, to take action, to live courageously with dynamic trust. Do you feel stuck? Are you stuck, trapped in fear? Or are you moved by your faith, emboldened and taking action? What will faith move you to do this week? Will it move you to pray? Perhaps pray for someone that you might be holding a resentment for or towards. Will you be praying for a loved one that you have concern about? Will you be praying for a particular situation or outcome? Will you be praying? Will faith move you to pray this week? Will faith move you to strengthen your faith, to mature in the faith? Maybe become a part of a Bible study. Maybe pick up your Bible and read it through. What will faith move you to do this week? Maybe it'll be a kind word or letter to a friend. Dear friend, let's be moved by our faith. I pray that this message has been a blessing to you, and I hope and pray that you will have a blessed week. Until next time, bye-bye.